They don't explain also, in the exact same situation, the Gloria Ladson Billings is one of the chief authors of a ed equity in Virginia that's bringing critical race theory into all of the state schools of Virginia right now.
Notice how Dr. Phil's raising his hand, basically waiting his turn to speak on his show that he owns. And James Lindsay just keeps on going because he has absolutely no respect for people that are not called James Lindsay or Peter Boghossian. Alrighty, let's get into the fan art section, and then we will talk about one James Lindsay, who many of you probably already know. If you like him, you've probably read his book, what was it, How to Have Impossible Conversations, he did with Peter Boghossian, or if you happen to be more in tune with the CRT conversation that's been happening for fuck ever, then you'll probably know him from that. But either way, let's get to the fan art, and we'll talk about what recently happened with him, because it's, not gonna lie, more than a little funny. So first, we have a piece here from Glubbinex. They posted that this is still fan art, so I'll show a work in progress of the commission for Suris they're doing there. So this is a work in progress for a piece that is finished, and I do actually own as a playmat now, but it was done by Glubbinex. They consider to be fan art as well, so I guess they've dropped it onto the fan art section. The next one we have, ooh, that's for later. The next one we have is this one by Karambe, and as per usual, they have not provided any context for the image. I feel like now that they've probably seen their artwork shown multiple times on my channel, they will never give any context for any image they ever make, because at this point, it's just the meme. And yes, there are two versions of this one. There was Happy Suris and there was Angie Suris. There was both. If these eyes haunt you, these eyes are judging you. Thank you very much, Karamba, for the fan art. If you would like your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of my Discord. With that said, let's begin with a tweet. James Lindsay, who says they're excellent on TV, apparently, says, I don't have a TV, so y'all are gonna have to let me know how this broadcast of Dr. Phil on CRT featuring yours truly goes. It starts in a few minutes Eastern time. Dude is very excited. Dude is very happy. Dude, he is just itching to have his moment on TV aired. This is very important to him. Let's see what happens. So let's go ahead and play this clip here.
If I could wave a magic wand, critical race theory should be rendered a historical artifact.
If he could wave a magic wand, critical race theory would be rendered a historic artifact. So usually when you have a conversation like this, you ask, hey, can you even define critical race theory? Can you do that? James can actually do that here. Kind of, sort of. So let's go. Let's see what happens here.
Please welcome co-author of book Cynical Theories, James Lindsay. James, thank you so much for being on.
Harry B.
Dr. Phil.
You say this should be an artifact. We should just put this behind us.
I do not believe the critical race theory tenet that says that racism is the ordinary state of affairs in our society, and if we don't dredge up a race consciousness, that we can't get over it. I think this is actually a lie. It's very annoying to me to listen to the back and forth here. In fact, I'm glad to be here to bring some knowledge. I take a lot of umbrage with the idea that we're going to talk about should we have critical race theory, this or that, because it's talking about racism or history, when the fact of the matter is it's not are we, it's how are we.
Have you noticed what he's doing right now? He's not breathing. He's just saying a bunch of shit. Now, so far, he is saying that he takes umbrage with whatever conversation was happening between these people here. Whether or not they are experts, I do not know. But apparently, he comes in and says, I'm here to bring some knowledge. I'm happy to be here and bring some knowledge. That I can't actually hear him. I wish I could turn him up more, but I can't. Did probably hot knowledge turds? Well, there's a thing he's going to do here, and I think you're going to find it very interesting what he does. Because this is a type of thing that people who are trying to make themselves out to be experts by shoving a bunch of information at you instead of actually explaining something to you will do. You're about to witness a gish gallop.
And I am shocked and appalled to hear the defensive side for critical race theory misrepresent it this way, but they don't explain, for example, why the first paper called Toward a Critical Race Theory of Education by Gloria Ladson Billings was published in 1995. They don't explain why Richard Delgado's 2001 book explains on page 5, for example.
Before we get any further, he takes umbrage with the fact that people are not taking specific papers and explaining the specific papers. When you are explaining a concept to somebody, you do not go, actually on page 587 of textbook 582 that I read on March 2nd of 1993 that was released in March 1st of 1991. The book actually says this and you did address that. No, nobody fucking explains a concept that way. Nobody. If somebody is trying to get you to understand something, they do not explain something in this way. They do what's called synthesizing. They take all of the information that you can gather from the text, from observation, from data, and then they communicate it to you like a normal fucking person. They talk about it in regular, common language. If you want technical speak with abbreviated citations in bibliographical fashion, then you look at a fucking research paper, not 7 people having a conversation on a stage.
That it rapidly spread from law to other disciplines, especially education. They don't explain also in the exact same situation that Gloria Ladson Billings is one of the chief authors of a ed equity in Virginia that's bringing critical race theory into all of the state schools of Virginia right now.
Look at his facial expressions. Dude is breaking down. Dude looks nervous as shit. How does he look that okay, so just I'm gonna rewind here. This has no bearing on the argument, but I just want you to watch like the shape of his mouth. This is the type of stuff you see when somebody's like explaining something via a breakdown. Yeah, why does it look like he wants to cry and fight? I don't know. He looks like he wants to have a breakdown. He looks like he wants to cry.
They don't explain also in the exact same situation that Gloria Ladson Billings is one of the chief authors of a ed equity in Virginia that's bringing critical race theory into all of the state schools of Virginia right now.
Notice how Dr. Phil's raising his hand, basically waiting his turn to speak on his show that he owns. And James Lindsay just keeps on going because he has absolutely no respect for people that are not called James Lindsay or Peter Boghossian.
You must breathe through your ears because you
I have read the vast majority of the major works in critical race theory that have been published since 1970 to the most recent things, including, for example, in 2006.
Another bit of facial structure to notice. I want you to see, watch. There's a man on the left side, and I want you to watch his facial expression as he watches Lindsay continue to talk. Watch. We go from I am uncomfortable with this man speaking, but I'm gonna let it continue to
I have read the vast majority of the major works in critical race theory that have been published since 1970 to the most.
Now look at where we're at. We have judgy, we have faux shocked, we have parent listening to their child explain while they got a D on their report card for something they definitely helped them with, and dear God in heaven, why won't this man shut up? Just why? Okay, continue.
Most recent things, including, for example, in 2017, we have Allison Bailey writing a paper for Hypatia, an education paper, and she says that there's
it just continues. That fucking side eye. Look.
Paper, and she says that there's the critical thinking tradition, but what we're doing in critical pedagogy, which critical race theory is an integrated part of, is from a different set of tradition called critical theory, which is neo-Marxism, which is interested in studying the relationships of power rather than epistemic adequacy. You can look.
And he just keeps going. And he just keeps going. And we'll break down the things that are being said here in a second, but another 20 seconds. Bear with me.
Look the paper up. It's called Tracking Privilege Preserving Epistemic Pushback in Critical Race in Feminist Philosophy Classrooms.
That's not being taught in K-12 schools. Sorry.
It's
It
not.
isn't. I mean, congratulate, like, as much as you do.
All it took is one statement. All it took is one statement. We'll hear it again.
That's not being caught in K-12 schools. Sorry.
So, to maybe explain why that fucking matters. So, people who freak out about CRT always freak out about it being taught in the classroom, saying that white kids are being taught to hate each other, black kids are being taught to hate white kids, and it's because of critical race theory. And then when you actually look at critical race theory, the curriculums that it's taught in, you find that it's taught generally in places like law school, because it has to deal with, for instance, here's the thing that CRT deals with. CRT does not tell you whether or not a person is racist. It doesn't tell you whether or not a group of people are racist. But if there's an action, like let's say a group of African-American individuals were unable to purchase land for a certain amount of time because the banks would not lend them money. So they weren't able to get out of a particular area. And that area, the housing taxes in that area, continued to be used in such a way that they couldn't get access to higher education, or at least better standardized education, because housing taxes are what funds schools. Critical race theory looks at that and says, okay, so we can see that at some point racism, or at the very least something that is completely colored by race, had to do with why this one area is has the education system that it does, or why a group of people are stuck in a particular geographical location. CRT looks at that. CRT looks at systems. Secret Agent Tan, thank you very much for the follow. What CRT doesn't do is say, this was racist. It doesn't tell you to hate people of a particular race. It says, hey, historically in the 30s, it was harder for black people to buy, to get loans for houses or land. Therefore, they got stuck in redlined areas. And then later on, instead of choosing whether or not they would allow loans on racial lines, banks started doing this based on geographical lines. But those geographical lines just so happened to be racially divided because of the previous issues that were linked to race. So now it's still linked to race. Nobody's being called racist here. Nobody's being told that they need to be attacked for their racism. But you're looking at a series of systems and seeing how it affects people because of something that was racist in the past. And because this redlined area is also the area that would be taxed for local schooling, now you have lower funds for said schools. And it just so happens that the people who are getting substandard schooling would still be largely black. Like, that's how it works. Now, this does not mean that we have not come a very long way since then. We have. But that's what CRT does. That's its job. Okay, so why explain that? Because I didn't have to do 1,000 fucking citations of papers to explain that to you. I just had to say, hey, at one point a racist thing happened, then we changed the rules so that it wasn't racist on paper, but it still kind of de facto was because the people affected were still largely of one race. Yep, boom. I didn't have to cite a bunch of papers. I didn't have to make myself look like the smartest person on the block because I have random-ass papers of random-ass things memorized. I'm not dunking on somebody for not citing the exact thing the same way that quotes were cited in the fucking debate in God's Not Dead. Didn't have to do it. Because in normal conversation, that's not what you have to do. That's not how people learn anything, James. Your book is called How to Have Impossible Conversations, but apparently the hardest conversation you had was on a fucking Dr. Phil show. Yes, Delta, you missed the MTG stuff. That was way earlier. But okay. I just thought it was funny that James got completely and totally dunked on. Because at the end of the day, not only did he have to make himself look super smarter than everybody else, he even flat out said, I'm glad I can come here and bring some education here. We then have the secondary issue of, hey, None of this is actually being taught in schools, dude. These are being taught in law school curriculums. This is stuff being taught to students who are postgraduate. This is not a thing being taught in K through 12 schools. You have to move the goalpost to say that. You can say that, oh, we're talking about racism in schools. And if that's the case, okay, who the fuck cares? That's not CRT. Your problem was with CRT. But let me know what you guys think. I want to throw this conversation back to you guys in the comment section. If you guys are watching on YouTube, head over there. If you guys are watching either on my website or on Twitch, the conversation's obviously happening in the live chat as we speak. With all that said, though, as always, everybody, instant end the video tagline here.